welcome to Under the Umbrella. I'm your host, WDTN Plus meteorologist Melissa Barrington. The purpose of this show is to highlight various aspects of weather and how they impact our community. Our choices of topic will be far and wide-ranging with a new topic each week. The Dayton Air Show is just around the corner, and today we are asking pilots about the weather criteria that they need to put on a successful show. And today we are joined by pilot, founder, and president of Dream Flight's Darryl Fisher. Hello, Darryl. How are you?
Hi, Michelle. How are you doing? It's great to be here. Thanks.
Thank you very much for joining us. Can you tell me a little bit about how long you've been flying, and also tell me a little bit more about Dream Flights?
Well, when you ask me how long I've been flying, it makes me feel a little bit old because I started in 1982 at 18, and so I've been flying 42 years.
Okay. And can you tell me a little bit more about your organization, about Dream Flights?
Dream Flights is a very interesting organization. I founded it 15 years ago, and our mission is to give back to those who gave. We do that by giving veterans who live in nursing homes, assisted living, and retirement centers Dream Flights in a World War II biplane, and it's magic.
So why did you pick that biplane? I mean, how did you even get started flying that plane?
Well, my grandmother and grandfather were both pilots, and my grandfather bought one of these airplanes just like this in 1946 after the war.
Okay.
And so I was exposed to aviation and biplanes at a very young age. So, and it was by accident that I kind of got into, I didn't really pick that airplane.
Okay.
My dad had one of those airplanes. I'm in the senior living business.
Okay.
And in 2011, he had his biplane restored in Mississippi, and I asked him if, on our way back, if I could give some veterans flights from local care facilities at our gas stops.
And what was the response from the veterans?
Well, it was beyond my wildest imagination. I didn't know what to expect. Didn't even know how I was going to get a 90-year-old veteran in the biplane.
Yes.
But as it turns out, it's the perfect airplane, and everybody loves a biplane. And so it really created this magical experience when you take the veteran who now thinks their flying days are over. You not only take them flying, but you take them flying in a World War II biplane.
That must be really exciting. Like, how are they excited when they come out of that? What's their response?
Well, some responses I cannot repeat.
Of course.
On air.
I'm sure. I'm not surprised at that at all.
But universally, there's smiles because it something happens physiologically. And I didn't even understand it. I still don't fully understand it today. But I took a gentleman, Eddie Lampkin, for a flight up in Wisconsin. He was in a wheelchair. His son said he was ready to die. He was just done. His wife had passed away. Life was hard. He was 90 years old. I put him in the airplane. He got out, and his son brought his wheelchair up, and he says, "I don't need that anymore." Eddie lived another 6 years, never used a wheelchair again.
That is amazing. Yeah. So this is life-changing for some of these folks.
In many respects, it is life-changing, and in most respects, it's the last best experience in life.
Oh, so they're in an open cockpit plane. Very few people, first of all, ever fly in an open cockpit. So what's it like for them to be in this? Do they have to wear any special equipment? What about the wind? What about the bugs, the birds, all this stuff that's going on up there in the cold? I assume it's cold.
It can be cold. We learned over time that we won't give flights if it's below 50 degrees because it's just not a pleasant experience for anybody. Yeah. But if it's above 70, it's a very pleasant experience, a light jacket. You get some wind, just enough to know that you're in an open cockpit, but it's not really bad.
Okay. Are there any special flying conditions that you're looking at when you're taking a veteran up?
Yeah, from the weather standpoint, we have a pretty narrow window of what we can fly. And if it's raining, we can't fly because the loading process. It becomes dangerous to load. It's a little bit slippery and things. And it's just not, it's supposed to be fun. So, and then if the wind gets too strong, if it gets gusting and crosswinds and things like that, the pilots have to say, hey, we're just not going to fly today. We'll reschedule.
Okay. Do they have to wear any special equipment to go up?
They do. We have special helmets, the cloth helmets with headsets and things. But other than that, it's It's just a normal flight for them.
Okay. When they're up there, are they like super excited while they're flying?
Yeah, I get a lot of thumbs up. There's a mirror right beneath the lower wing on top,
Okay.
and I can see their face. And so when I first start, I can see the tension kind of, but then when we're up there, they're just like smiles, thumbs up, waving. It's a pretty remarkable transformation.
Now, you're not based out of Dayton. Where are you based out of, and do you go to other air shows?
We don't go to other air shows. This is the only air show that we go
Really?
to, and I can explain that.
Okay, please do.
Okay, well, the air show, we fly Ohio Masonic homes. They have 3 big, senior living campuses here in Ohio, and so next week, after the air show, we'll be flying their veterans. And so we developed this relationship, and Scott Buchanan is the chairman of the air show.
Okay.
And so he said, hey, can you bring your airplanes in early and put them on display and support the air show since we're here? We're coming here anyway.
Right.
And so, and this air show, let me just put a plug in for them. They do the most amazing job. In the past, I've been to some air shows. Mm-hmm. They're an incredible run organization, and they do such a nice job. They treat us so well. And the people, the citizens of Dayton love to have the airplanes here. So it's kind of an anomaly because it's the only show we do every year. And we've done it for 5 years.
And how many veterans do you take up for the time that you are here?
Well, we kind of go out of mission a little bit for the days we're here. We've kind of morphed into taking some local veterans who are important to the air show and to the area flights the week before the air show, since we're here.
Right.
We'll fly probably 20 to 30 veterans.
So, like, the weather this week is kind of dicey.
Well,
so how does that affect, like if there's showers in the area, like today there's, it's kind of on and off rain. How does that affect your flight schedule?
Well, first let me say we're so fortunate because Saturday and Sunday look to be spectacular, and I'm sure you know that.
Yeah, well, we're going to talk about that in a minute.
Okay, all right. So I'm looking forward to that. But we do what Mother Nature allows us to do. So if it rains, a little shower moves through, we'll shut down, we'll pick back up. If Mother Nature allows us to fly, we'll fly, and if it doesn't, then if the ceilings are too low for us or the winds or the rain, then we'll just shut down until we can fly.
So you were telling me before we started this, let's talk about what it took to get you here with that plane.
Well, let me just put a point of clarification. I run 2 organizations.
Oh, okay.
I run Dream Flights, and then which I founded, and then I founded Legacy Flights.
Okay.
Legacy Air Base, which we fly younger veterans in North American AT6. So I brought it out from Carson City.
Okay.
I left Sunday, flew 1,700 nautical miles, which you can see on the screen. Mm-hmm. And I thought the listeners and viewers might want to see kind of what I'm looking at in the cockpit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because this is kind of what the blue is the path that I took.
Okay.
And then you can see the weather, and I can tell where it's moving and what's happening and make my decisions in the cockpit based on the weather and what's happening real time.
So I see that it looks like there was some rain around on your flight getting over here. So do you fly through rain, or do you try to go around it as much as possible?
I can fly through rain, but when you see those red areas and the dark green areas, those are levels of intensity. Mm-hmm. And particularly, we got into a situation where there was a lenticular cloud just north of Champaign, Illinois.
Now, a lot of folks may not know what a lenticular cloud is around here, because a lot of times you see them more out in the Rockies and out in the West. We don't see them very often here, but yes, it's a very specific type of cloud.
It is. It was built up to about 40,000 feet,
okay.
And then it had kind of an anvil shape pointed north. And if you're not careful, those can actually spit hail balls out of them up to 5 to 10 miles away from them based on the winds. So we took about a 15-mile deviation to the north of that on our way here around Champaign.
Okay. So you have to be really, do those clouds, I'm not as super familiar with them either. So do they produce lightning?
Yes. Lightning, thunder, big vertical activity.
Okay.
And you want to avoid them pretty much at all. Even the airliners avoid those.
Okay, because lightning, for anyone who doesn't know, lightning can go out 10 to 20 miles from a cloud.
Right.
So it's called a bolt from the blue. So when you get that, and then you're looking at that being in a plane, that's got to be kind of scary.
Yeah, you want to just stay away from that. It pretty much doesn't matter what airplane you're in. You want to avoid those at all costs.
Okay. Well, why don't we take a quick break and we will come right back and we are going to talk more with Darryl Fisher from Dream Flights about how weather impacts the Dayton Air Show and for folks who will be flying that particular for the show coming up. Hello and welcome back to Under the Umbrella. Today we are joined by Darryl Fisher of Dream Flights, who will be at the Dayton Air Show. So, Darryl, we've been talking about the weather and how it impacts pilots, and let's talk more specifically about the air show. There's all these different types of planes. They have different weather criteria based on the type of plane that they are? And like this weekend, we're looking at the potential for high heat. And for folks, who are watching the air show, they're going to be dealing with the heat at the ground. Does that affect, the pilots as they're flying, or does it help cause problems with the fuel, for example, like how much fuel they have or weight restrictions?
Yeah, it's called density altitude, and the hotter it gets, it makes it seem like it's a higher altitude, and airplanes don't perform as well. But at this elevation, that shouldn't be an issue too much for most of the airplanes. Weather does affect airplanes differently. For instance, like the Thunderbirds, they have a lot of power, they have a high wing loading, and so they can deal with winds and weather that, like, for instance, my biplane can't deal with. So if you have really strong winds, it typically doesn't affect the jets like it does the smaller airplanes. And so you do have to take that into effect. And then there's, a couple years ago I was here and I was in a briefing. I was in the pilot's briefing for the air show. And I learned that, like, the Thunderbirds have a high show and then a low show and then a flat show. So based on the cloud
On
and the
cloud base,
visibility,
yes.
right, they decide which show they're going to do based on the conditions at the time. Now, looks like they'll probably do the high show because it looks like you'll talk about it a little bit more later, but that year they had a little weather, and so they were talking about doing the low show. So it does impact pilots' decisions almost, but they're fairly routine for pilots. We're used to making those decisions. The technical limitations at the air show in the briefing that go over this is they want 5 miles visibility and a 1,500 foot ceiling.
So what happens if the cloud base is lower? So can
They
they
don't-
change?
They postpone. Typically, they'll push the schedule back.
Okay, can they change the schedule while they're there? Like, well, this one can't go, but this one can?
Yes. Yeah, they make modifications based on what they have in the program. Some things don't require much visibility, helicopter demonstration or whatever. But so I have seen them arrange the show differently, and then I have seen them push some acts back and things like that. But it's just all part of what we do.
So you mentioned that there's a group briefing. How do pilots typically get their weather briefing, and what's different by participating in an air show?
Well, at an air show, you're flying in waivered airspace, so you have to have certain credentials, like commercial pilot and formation tickets and things like that if you're going to be doing those kind of things. But if you're flying low, you have to have a waiver to fly like at certain altitudes. So you must attend the briefing. Every pilot that's going to be in the show has to have, be briefed. Now, like some of the bigger teams or things like that, they'll send one person to the brief, but they have to be there, and then they have to brief the rest of the crew. And they go through the weather. That's one of the first things they go through. The first thing is safety. They're very concerned about safety, and I've been incredibly impressed with this group here. The FAA is at these briefings. The air boss, who's in charge of the whole organization of pilots and what they're doing, is there leading it. And it's a big deal. They take it very seriously, and it's really a well-run deal. So then they get into a weather brief Then they get into, hey, we've got we've got Wright-Patterson over here. If you have an issue, you can go land over there. We've got, Dayton to the south. And they go through the airports and the frequencies and then the sequence of events. And they take questions. You have to sign in. It's a pretty extensive process.
So my question to you is, okay, I give the weather on TV, and how is what I give on TV different from what you're getting for a weather briefing to fly?
Well, it is quite different, but it's important. I look at general weather like your briefing in my flight briefs because it generally tells me what's going to happen in a region. The flight planning that I do is very specific to the convective activity, radar summaries, winds. I go to specific airports along the route and I look at their forecasts, I look at their current conditions. And the beautiful thing, Michelle, is you can pull that up. I mean, technology is wonderful. I can pull that up right on my iPad. You used to have to call people at flight briefings before every flight, and they would look at this information and they would verbally tell you over the phone. So you're having to picture kind of where everything is and what's going on. Now I can do all that and see it real time, not only before I take the flight, but in flight I can make those decisions with that information.
So there's all these different types of aircraft at the air show. Do they all have different equipment to look at the weather?
Yes, they do, but most all of us, and again, it's technology, most all of us have that on our iPads or mini iPads or telephone. We have the same software. And so we all have the same info. We can all get the same briefings. Once you get in the cockpit, then like our biplanes have nothing for weather except your phone or your iPad, right? But a lot of the jets and things like that have radar systems in them. They can fly instrument flight plans. They can fly through the clouds. So you have a wide range of capabilities once you get into the airplanes, depending on what it is.
So since you're flying in an open cockpit, I have to ask this. Do you fly through clouds?
No. You don't have, when you go into a cloud, you have to almost flip a switch because you can't feel, you've lost all spatial orientation. And so you can't feel anything. You have to specifically look at your instruments and fly solely by instrument, not by feel. And we don't have that capability in the biplane, not to mention the fact if you picked up ice on the biplane, it would be a problem, and it's just not a good idea.
So what level is icing, or does that vary based on the season?
It really varies based on the temperature and moisture. And so in the summer, obviously, you have to go higher to get into icing conditions, but you can get icing in the summertime, just depending on the elevation. In the wintertime, it can be a little bit tricky because if it's freezing on the ground and you pick up ice, as you come lower, you won't get rid of the ice.
So it's just weighing you down as you're coming down.
And so basically the program with ice is avoid it unless you're in a jet.
So do you fly in the winter at all, or do you stay like in the southern U.S.? Or
Dream flights, we start flying in like the 1st of April in the south.
Okay.
Because the weather's good, and then we work our way north, which we're doing now. And then in about September, October, we start working our way south, and then by Veterans Day, we're finished with our season. We've been going 8 months at that point in time. We need some downtime for maintenance on the airplanes and to regroup and plan for the next year.
So what would you say is the biggest weather issue when you're flying a plane? Is it wind? Is it lightning? Is it thunder? Convective storms? What's your biggest concern?
Well,
I know it all does play into one, but there's got to be something.
The easy ones are convective, because when you see that, you just don't fly.
Right.
The difficult ones were when it's perfectly sunny, and people think you can fly, but it's windy, or you have a crosswind. You don't have a parallel or a cross runway, and we're limited to a 10-knot crosswind component.
Is that specific for your plane or for all planes?
That's specific to the biplane.
Okay.
Jets and things like that can handle much more. A lot of airplanes can handle much more. It just gets difficult to handle. We feel like that's a threshold of safety. And our first priority at Dream Flights is safety, followed closely by fun, I might add. So that becomes difficult for people to understand, because if it's raining and cloudy, they get that.
Right, and that's where I was going with the air show. Sometimes something might happen where someone may not be able to fly because, like you said, there might be a crosswind that people
Right.
aren't seeing, and then all of a sudden they're saying, "Hey, this person isn't flying. Why not?"
Yeah. Well, I've even seen situations where, we call it the three Ps, or I call it the three Ps in flying. Is the airplane ready for it? Then what's your plan? And is the pilot ready to handle what the plan is? So if the airplane's ready and you got your plan set, did you sleep well? Have you eaten? Are you hydrated? And I've seen situations at this air show where a pilot said, "Hey, I'm going to raise my minimums," because for a variety of reasons, because they felt like whatever they were dealing with, they wanted to go a little higher and give themselves a better margin of safety. So it is always the pilot's prerogative to say, "I'm not ready for this for whatever reason." And honestly, nobody says any. I mean, that is great, because safety is the first priority. And if the pilot's not feeling it, they shouldn't do it. And this air show in particular does not put pressure on people.
So, do you remember a specific situation where things have changed at this particular air show?
We had some weather issues. It got better, and it was too bad, because people thought that there wasn't going to be a show, and then it cleared up, and it was a beautiful show. And then, like I said, I know particularly in that one pilot situation, they were dealing with some things, and they said, "Hey, we're raising our show. We're going to make it less complex. We're going to increase the altitudes," and it worked beautifully.
So this weekend here, we're looking at potentially our first heat wave of the summer here. So of course, just in time for the air show, it's going to get hot. How does that impact flying?
Well, the main thing, and I had a good friend of mine rode out with me from Carson City this week, and hydration is really key. And pilots, I think, tend to forget that. And so I was telling my buddy, I said, stay hydrated, because you're in a cockpit, you're getting dehydrated, you don't even know it, right? Because you're not doing anything physically. So, for pilots, you want to be hydrated, you want to be ready. The heat, I think last year it was in the mid 90s, so I think it's going to be cooler than last year, which will be nice. Mm-hmm. But I don't see anything other than just pilots being hydrated and paying attention to what they do affecting the show this year.
Does the heat cause any additional problems with the thermals or the winds aloft?
Not really too much. I mean, because keep in mind that most of the air show performers are flying at a low altitude, so what you have on the ground is pretty much what they're experiencing typically.
Okay. So how many times have you been to the Dayton Air Show?
My first time here was in 2020, I believe. Yeah, 2021.
Okay.
And so this is our 5th year here. We've come back every year. They've asked us to come back.
And if there's a veteran that is interested, I assume that you're already booked for your entire time here. How does someone in future years contact you to potentially take a flight?
Well, what I would suggest is they go to one of two websites. They can go to dreamflights.org, or they can go to legacyairbase.org, and we have an application in there that they can apply for. And we prearrange all of our flights, with the exception if there's World War II veterans here in the area that would like a flight. We will turn ourselves inside out to make sure that happens.
And it's free to veterans.
Absolutely.
Okay. And anything else that you would like to add to the conversation about Dream Flights or about the Dayton Air Show?
Well, first of all, the Dayton Air Show is a class act, and I want to thank everybody publicly that works. They work super hard, and they achieve in ways that are unimaginable. The second thing I want to say is you brought it up that we never charge for flights. You can't buy flights. You've earned them, and we're doing this to honor you and thank you for what you've done for us. And you'll see the logos on the airplane and on my shirt, because we're just simply saying thank you to the Sport Clips and Veterans United and American Airlines and those kind of people who make it happen, because we depend on them. Without them, the veterans don't get this experience and this life-changing experience.
thank you very much, Darryl, for being on the show today. I really appreciate all the insightful information that you've given us. And thank you for joining us on Under the Umbrella. If you have a suggestion for a show or you know someone who might be a good potential guest, you can email me at undertheumbrella@wdtn.com. Put Under the Umbrella in the subject line. Thank you very much and hope you have a wonderful day.